Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. We got Mike Johnson coming up here in a few moments. Mike Johnson will join us ahead of free agency tomorrow, free agent frenzy on TSN. Jonathan Papelbon later in the hour. Chris Bassett put on a clinic last night. Absolute clinic, and the Jays have now taken 2 out of 3 against the Giants, and they roll into tonight. And, between Bassett and Gausman, like those guys, I saw a stat last night, the two of them, going 6 innings and giving up no earned runs. Like, they've combined to do that more so than, here it is right here, ESPN Stats and Info. Kevin Gausman and Chris Bassett each have 6 games with 6 innings pitched and 0 earned runs before July. Only one other pair of teammates has done that since the ERA became official in 1913. That was Dutch, Leonard, and Rube Foster of the 1914 Sox.
Rube.
Yeah, Dutch and Rube were quite the 1-2 at the top of the rotation for the Red Sox back in 1914.
I think the Jays are going to go on a heater in the second half. I really do. I don't know
you're
why.
Starting to feel it?
I just think the issues they had, they got to just subside, don't they? Where it's like, let's get into some smooth sailing here. And I don't know. Didn't they crank it up at this time last year?
Yep. They've done that a number of times in the past where you kind of turn the page into July, and this is where you start to separate, right? Like, this is second half of the baseball seasons where you really prove who you are, and you still got a lot of time to separate. And listen, they're winning series. Obviously, they took 2 of 3 against Oakland. They just took 2 of 3 against the Giants. Now you got the Red Sox in town for 3. They got to get off the schneid, early here because they're 1-6 in their last 7 openers of a series. So if you can get a win tonight, then you start talking sweep, right? Like get that first one out of the way and then roll it into Kikuchi on the mound tomorrow. You got Barrios on the mound tonight. So, yeah, we'll see. It'll be a good one with Boston in town.
Well, you need those. I mean, you need to keep rolling. But for me, watching that game last night, Vladdy, that's kind of Vladdy from a couple of years ago, where he got all of that, and he knew it. I mean, he stood there for what seemed like 10 seconds watching it leave the park. Then he made the rounds. But I mean, he knew it was gone.
I think everyone on earth knew that was gone. That was one of those off the bat that he hit so violently. Like, we always talk about exit velocity, and he's the king of exit velocity. A lot of times it's on ground balls. And exit velocity on a ground ball in the majors, guys are going to pick that out, and you're out. They're going to throw you out. But if you have a launch angle that goes with exit velocity, do the math, right? It's going to lead to an absolute moonshot like we saw last night.
Do the math.
It was a bomb, though. But that was the difference in the game. Good
it was.
Pitching and clutch hitting, and that was it.
There you go.
It's over.
That's what we've been talking about, right? Pitching and defense has been there for the most part. It's about clutch hitting and getting the job done. They did that last night. So Papelbon will join us a little bit later. There it is up on TSN 4. That, and you're right. He was making sure to watch that. He was admiring that home run last night. Vladdy knew it was out the second it hit his bat. So, Papelbon a little bit later in the hour. I'm seeing the Aiden Hill extension is official in Vegas. He got his 2-year deal at $4.9 million. He's a Cup winner.
That's smart.
That's hey, thanks for winning us a Stanley Cup. Here's not a long-term deal.
Kind of got to do it. I think it's good for both sides.
Yep.
Yeah,
Vegas
that's a
Vegas.
win. That's a win for both organizations where you're like, makes sense. We'll give you the Leonard money because you took his job in essence and you won us a cup, but we still aren't sure what you are in the regular season because you only played 27 games. So
what are they going to do with the other 6 goalies around?
Yeah, like I think it's a perfect deal as far as term, and the money is a moot point based on Leonard's money going on LTIR.
Right. But, and again, it's not a big commitment. Like, I think it's another move where Vegas, it never feels like they do anything silly, or they rarely do things out of a form of desperation. Doesn't feel that way anyway. Doesn't mean they're not active, but it always feels like they have some sort of a plan or some sort of leverage activated. Here's Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst. Where are you at with Vegas, compared to the rest of the league, Johnny? Are they kind of created this kind of gold standard operation, and they've only been around for 6 years?
I mean, I think because of their success, they deserve a lot of credit and respect in their aggressiveness. The Riley Smith trade is a perfect example of what they do. The week after, one of the original Misfits wins the Cup, they're like, listen, we need that money to sign Barbashev. So we love you. We love what you've done for our organization in the brief time you're here. You're our most important players of all time. Out you go. And they find ways to make tough deals like that. They do deserve credit for that. And then I think now sometimes the success sort of breeds its own sort of culture where Adin Hill says, I like playing here. We're a good team. The money, I think, is about what he would have got on the open market. But I'm surprised that a guy who hasn't been in the NHL that long, who's in his late 20s, I think he could have got more terms, certainly, on the open market. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to stay in Vegas because we're good, and I got a good team in front of me. They make me look good. I like the goalie coach and all that. They deserve credit for all that for sure. They basically had to pay to get Max Pacioretty out of there. The Thomas Tatar deal for his first, second, third round pick. Like, not everything they've done has absolutely worked. Mm-hmm. They're not infallible, but I think they are so successful now. People want to play there, and they're not afraid to make hard decisions, which I do think is not the norm for every team in the league.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier in the last hour, Johnny, is hard decisions, and bring it back to the Leafs. Mm-hmm. There's a decision to be made with William Nylander, and I don't know if they're close on a deal or not close on a deal, but, what's your take on that? And, Hayes brought up a third option as far as, maybe you just go into the season and him playing on an expired contract if you don't feel the marketplace is proper on a trade.
Yeah, that would probably be option one would be to sign him to a deal that I guess the Leafs are okay with and that Nylander will be happy with. Option two, I suppose, is getting a great trade, but you're never going to get a player as good as William Nylander if you trade William Nylander. Right? Pierre-Luc Dubois is not as good as William Nylander, and the best player they got was Gabe Vilardi. And while Gabe Vilardi's good, he's not as good as Dubois. Like, you're going to be, if the winner of the trade is the team that gets the best player, that's going to be the team that gets William Nylander in whatever deal they make. So, but you do have the option. I mean, you can take it in the season. You can sign him to an extension anytime you want. You can see how the year's going. You can kick the can down the road. But you do run the risk of souring William Nylander if you wanted to eventually re-sign him. Maybe he does great. The cap is booming, and it becomes harder to re-sign him, if you could imagine that. So it does come with a bit of risk if you do that. The problem is, if you're going to look at what William Nylander is worth as a percentage of the cap in today's market, with the cap going 87.5 and 92,
it's the Meyer deal.
It's Meyer, or I mean, he's a better offensive player than Timo Meyer. He has been the last couple of years. So it's the Meyer deal. So it's whatever, $9 million, something like that for 7-8 years. Like, are the Leafs okay with that? Does that seem like a good idea? I don't know, but that's exactly right. Like, that's the template. It's already been established.
Yeah, like Johnny, we were talking about it. Like, Dubois just got money, and I don't even anybody can come at me with different stats saying he's better. That's what's on the table as far as I would be concerned. Dubois, Meyer money, or we got to look to do something else because, sorry, man, you're not in your own universe where you think you just get whatever. They've already played that game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he would say quickly, Pierre-Luc Dubois, a center, physical, different. Career high in points is 63. He's never had 30. William just had 40 and like 87 points.
No, I get it, Johnny. You can come at me with anything you want, but I would just say...
I don't care. This is what it is. Right. But your marketplace is established. Take the 8.8, 8.75, whatever it is, and be happy with it, and be happy that you're playing a great team with other players that deflect some of the scrutiny that you might receive if you were the lead dog on a team.
Very simple.
And, you're that's the number. Like, it will come. Yeah. If he does a contract, it will come around that number between 8.75 and 9.
Hazy thinks he could rinse me on a trade.
No. What we were talking about is the.
Please tell me.
What we were talking about.
I was like, you got to move on and make a deal. And Hayes was like, you can't get fleeced. And I said, if I was a GM, I wouldn't get fleeced. And Hazy said, I would fleece you.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just
that's straight fact.
I think the biggest thing we were talking about, Johnny, is if there's that big, Williams allowed to ask for whatever he wants. But if he's asking, mid-tens, double digits type of thing, and you are at, we'll say 9. Let's just round down, round up, whatever you want. If you're at 9 and you're $1.5 million to $2 million apart, and you can't come to an agreement, now you have to look at options. And one of the options, I guess, what Hayes brought to the table was your third option is let him play it out. But again, do you let him walk or do you revisit it during the season and maybe at the deadline? Because there might be other scenarios throughout the league based on, I look at Calgary, for example. Is Lindholm going to be able to get done right before the season? Hannafin. There are other teams that are going to be going through the same scenario other than just William Nylander and the Leafs.
Yeah, it buys you time, right?
Right.
And maybe other options open up as time elapses. Other teams, other suitors. Maybe your season's not going as well as it is. Maybe your season's going great next year. And listen, we're going to roll the dice. And if he leaves and we take a run of the cup, then he leaves as we take a run of the cup. These are all things that they would be considering. It's amazing, how much. It's funny as I'm, watching this week's worth of transaction, guys, and the trends that are popping out. One, of course, being you can never let a good player start playing on the last year of his contract. You have to have a contract done with a guy basically in the summer before he starts the last year of his deal. That's a new, and maybe it's a function of Matthew Tkachuk asking out. That's probably spurred it forward. But that sentiment is so prevailing now. It's a new thing. I think the idea that Matt Duchene, this buyout money that's flying around is surprising to me. Matt Duchene is 2 years removed from a 40-goal season.
Right.
You couldn't eat $2 million of a salary and trade him as a $6 million player for even if it's for nothing. It's amazing that buyouts of that caliber player. He had 57 points last year in 71 games. I know he's not perfect and he may not be worth 8, but you could certainly eat $2 million and trade him as a 6. Someone's got to give JT Compher close to $6 million tomorrow. Can't you get Matt Duchene? It's just and the fact that teams aren't qualifying young players. It used to be you would never not qualify a young player. Never. Now teams are not qualifying guys left and right. Travis Dermott, Ethan Bear, Dennis Gurianov, you name it. Whole bunch of players that are not bad NHL players not getting qualifiers. It's a shifting landscape really quickly right now, and you got to be on top of it.
Well, what it sets up for me is for a team out there to realize that you got to have a great farm system, and if you do, it could be incredibly beneficial because – I've been saying this for years about the cap. The NFL has been working this way for a long time, and this week has felt like the NFL. It's cut. Mm-hmm. Even a salary retention's basically cut. Where you see that every year in the NFL, you're like, man, that's a good player. They cut him. And what do? We'll replace him with a guy we took in the 3rd round, and he may not be as good, but he'll be close enough and he'll be cheap. And I look at certain teams around the league, and we're so focused on Toronto. They would be in such a better place today and be able to breathe so much easier if they had 3 or 4 guys bubbling over, dying, ready for the pros. You had a defenseman, 2 forwards, and I guess you could include Wall. Maybe Wall is that guy in net. There's an example. All right, Murray, we don't need you anymore. They're not overly worried about who they're going to find for $2 million, $3 million as a backup. They finally have a kid who's going to come up. It allows you to breathe so much easier. And it allows you to find some cap flexibility because you can move on. But I don't sense the NHL is there yet. It's buyout, cut. Then we got to find a guy on a PTO for $900 that's 31 years old, as opposed to a 20-year-old who can step in and play. I don't sense it's there yet, but it should be. It's got to be at some point.
The idea is there, though, right? Replace the bottom end of your roster with virtually league minimum players.
Yes.
And whether that guy is Michael Bunting, or whether it's Nick Robertson. The sentiment is the same. We know we need to have $1 million player down there. We can't pay our 11th and 12th forwards $2.5 million. Although David Kampf, have we talked about his contract?
Oof.
That's tidy for a guy who probably should be your 4th line center. And I know he had a good year last year, but you're right though, Hayes. That's how teams need to operate. You need You got to find value, and the best value you get are on entry-level deals.
Yep.
When players are obviously going to outperform at $875 or whatever. If Matthew Nyes and if Nick Robertson and Topi Niemela were all ready to pop, you're like, okay, well, that gives us flexibility. Mm-hmm. It gives us other options to do some things and allocate money differently than thinking we got to give David Kampf, $2.5 million, and we got to give, Ryan Reeves $3 million or whatever it might be. That you just don't have available to you because the cap is so tight for these teams. But maybe it also says that you can't just plunk anyone in the NHL and expect them to play as well as maybe you can expect a third-round pick that plays middle linebacker to play in the NFL.
Right.
I don't know.
It's different.
Maybe that's the difference.
It is different, and those are 22, 23-year-old college players, and
right.
Yeah, but does it also speak to these young players that are not being qualified, as to a lot of them are all like looking for long-term deals? Like, it was a while not that long ago where guys were young and 23 out of the entry-level deals, or 22, and it was like that's that next 6-year deal, 8-year deal, like the bridge deal. There was no bridge deals. It was like long-term. And it wasn't that long ago that I was listening to that Ethan Bear wanted a long-term deal, and all of a sudden he's a free agent today. And right-shot defensemen are at a premium. Like, to me, that's a red flag if Vancouver just lets him go. Mm-hmm. A skilled defenseman who can move the puck, who's a decent skater. Mm-hmm. Like, there's
only
got to be
so many
something
cracks
up there.
left.
Well, it goes Edmonton, Carolina, Vancouver. Somebody's seeing something there. That all of a sudden a right-shot defenseman who can put up some points is available when there's such a premium right now.
Yeah, and part of that is that he hurt his shoulder, right? He had shoulder surgery, so he's not going to play until Christmas or something like that. Unfortunately, at the World Championship, so that hurt him. But Travis Dermott was not qualified as well. Another guy that was thought to be something. And I guess this is scouting and system and development, but at some point, you're right. The league tells you what they think of you. Now, they may be wrong occasionally, but if the entire league is saying it, then probably they're not. Like, if he doesn't have offers, if these guys who didn't get qualified, and maybe the qualifying number is just too big for what they do, but if they don't get a contract again tomorrow, Dennis Gurianov can't find $1.5 million contract because they didn't want to qualify him at 3.3. Then the league is telling you you're a bubble player.
That's right.
You're not good enough for anyone to get overly concerned about your availability or fitting you in or making space, because you're interchangeable. It doesn't mean you have no value, but you don't have enough for us to worry about making it work. And that's a sobering.
Or there's so many
message.
teams, Johnny. Only so many teams could say, kind of a little bit worried about the conditioning aspect of it. And then the same thing happens in Carolina, and then the same thing happens in Vancouver, and people are like, how can you – it's either go spend 6 months with Gary Roberts, or maybe you're not playing hockey anymore. It's up to him to figure it out.
Yeah. Johnny, what do you make of the Ryan Reeves Toronto connection?
How much are we paying him, Hayes? You're the GM. Your fleet's right. What are you paying him?
I think you can pay him more than like $1 million. Can you?
Right.
Like
so if it's $1 million, I was such not.
Just say it. You hate it.
So I'm not gonna try to suggest like I understand what that's like. I wasn't particularly moved. I had Ty Domi on my team. He was as tough as they come. I suppose he brought me space, but I don't know if I felt any safer when he played or didn't play, or when I left the team and I was no longer had him. I don't know. Ryan Reeves is as good as there is at his role. I just don't know how important that role is. We've had big, strong, tough players bounce around to protect Connor McDavid and Milan Lucic, whatever it is. Like, that doesn't – does Kaprizov not get hit because Ryan Reeves in Minnesota? Like, that stuff doesn't really work. Now, can he be impactful? Occasionally, he has a game in Detroit where he absolutely ruined Hronik. Like, he had a couple big hits. Like, that can happen. But, if he's going to get 3 years at $2.5 million, that can't happen because they don't have the space. They just don't – they can't afford – you got to get William Nylander that extra $1 million, not Ryan Reeves. Like, that's how I view it. Now, I wouldn't mind having him on my team, but they kind of had a guy like him last year in Wayne Simmons, right? And everyone
Simmons didn't scare anybody. That's the thing. Reeves is an animal. Like, he's an absolute toughest guy in the league. Him and Lucic.
He is.
Like,
but he's also a a respectful guy. Like he respects like Ryan Reaves would never have fought a player like me. Because he wouldn't.
You're right.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
And I say that with deference, out of respect. I'm not taking a shot at him. Like, that is a really admirable quality. So while he is terrifying, is he terrifying to the point that he affects the way people play? I don't think he is. Because if you're you play for Ottawa and you're whoever it might be, Josh Norris, you're not going to not play physically because Ryan Reaves might beat you up, because Ryan Reaves won't beat you up, not because he can't, but because he won't. And so I just don't know. The other problem is the other part when he's not fighting, because I think we can all agree if you were to fight there's nobody better than him in the entire NHL. When he's not fighting, is he still a good enough skater to get to the spots on the ice where he can be physical? Because that's the other thing. If you can get in a forecheck and bang some bodies and play your 8 minutes in the offensive end, whatever. I don't know if he's fast enough to get there anymore. He wasn't with the Rangers. He got a bit better with Minnesota, but, he's a big man who's in his 30s. It's hard to have that kind of pace where you can be an impactful forechecker at this point in his career.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with him. I don't think it makes sense because I'm thinking simply of the playoffs. And I don't know if he can keep up in the playoffs and be effective in the playoffs. I'd love him in the regular season. I would. I'd love to see him, plug him in as the 12th forward, have him go. I can picture, all I can think of is Tanner Jeannot yapping, and Jeannot's tough as
Arbor
nails.
Jack-Eye, something.
Exactly, Jack-Eye. And it's like, all right, you want to go talk to that guy, you can come talk to me. And I'd like to see them have that. And maybe they can make it work where the money's there where Reeves isn't even playing in the playoffs. And if that's the case, then I'd be okay with it. But I think this team, everything they need to be thinking is playoffs. Every single thing they need to do. And I don't see Reeves as a playoff guy. I think he's helping you is when it gets goofy in November and December and someone takes a run at someone or whatever. It's like, okay, go talk to that guy, and he'll go talk to you.
So there's two thoughts here, and I go farther back than you guys because I'm a little bit older. But it's like I played with Tony Twist, Kelly Chase, and Rudy Postcheck back when the league had 3 or 4 guys on each team. Mm-hmm. You did feel different because there was that sense of 100%. It's almost like and the difference for me is having people like that on the bench. I use the analogy: you're driving on the 401, you see a police officer there. What do? Sitting beside the road, you immediately take your foot off the gas. You slow down. You're aware. It may change your attitude. You're not. It's more just the threat of somebody being there. Now that's the old school mentality. The other thing I'll go at $1 million with Reeves is he's a big personality. That team doesn't have much personality.
I think he'd be thoroughly entertaining.
I think he might be.
But I think healthy. Not just entertaining, but healthy. Good for them to bring a little extra juice.
Yes.
All of their best players are kind of quieter, introspective.
You're right. Like, again, I'm just, if you're going to build a case for him, and that's what I'm trying to do, be the contrarian here, that's the two things that I would point to is he does have a presence, and he's a big personality with a room that seems that are very, very
it's
quiet,
the idea that there's none of that in the locker room, Noodles, because that's why you're bringing him in. A team like Vegas, who's kind of team tough, big, strong, they kind of stick together, 5-man strong in scrums. He was a part of that equation, and he's not there anymore. And what would you rather have? Would you have like an identity like Vegas where it's tough, physical, and there's not really one guy policing everything? And when you don't have any of it, you got to say, maybe we should go get a guy like Ryan Reaves, and then we'll feel safe again.
Well, that's how I would say everyone looks at the Reeves situation like, all right, what's it going to do for the other team's attitude?
Right.
I think it would be beneficial if you truly believed it made your own guys play tougher.
What to do for us.
Play bigger.
Right.
Exactly. Because that's like, let's cut to the facts here. You can't have Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner being scared on the ice in the playoffs. You can't win a cup if your best players are like, I don't want to do that. It can't happen. And at times, let's call it what it is. It's happened over 7 years. There have been times where those two guys have been like, I don't know, man. I don't know, Kachuk. I'm going to laugh at this one. I don't know about Stammer. I'm going to laugh at that one. Those guys need to get a message. Next time I get punched, I'm punching back. I'm not going to just smile. And
bringing in Ryan Reeves is not going to change that another player.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the conversation, though, right? Like, okay, Hayes, whether I agree with you or not, well, let's say I agree with you. Mm-hmm. But does Ryan Reeves change that behavior in the playoffs? I don't think so.
I don't know if he does.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And the absolute bow on this entire conversation is, and it's a fascinating one, because it is that, and this is in Ryan Reeves' credit, he's not taking $1 million contract. Like, he's going to get a multi-year deal for more than $1 million. I would be surprised if he doesn't get 2 something somewhere. 2 years, 2 and a quarter, something like that. 3 years, 1.5, something like that, for being the best in the business at what he does.
Yep.
So I don't think it even, unless he wants to come to Toronto, I'm not sure it would even work, because I think he probably gets more. He has other options for more money than Toronto can afford to pay him in our hypothetical conversation. But
Sure.
it does beg the question, though. Like, would he have an impact? That's one of the reasons Bill Guerin brought him into Minnesota. He said our locker room needed some volume, and he brings volume. We had too many guys who are too nice, who are quiet, and just want to do their business. I needed someone to just stir it up, because Bill Guerin was like that as well. And I think perhaps the Leafs dressing room could do with some of that as well. That's not wrong.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. But
that's
all right, we'll see.
I was thinking.
We'll see what happens. All right, Johnny, we'll catch you tomorrow, buddy.
All right, boys. Bright and early. Oh, we'll see you like 9 o'clock for early rehearsal or something.
Yes.
Yeah, can't wait.
Okay, there you go.
there.
There's a tease for you. Thanks, Johnny. Mike Johnson, our TSN Hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota. Check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory. Arriving daily, it's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. We got some Hyunjin Ryu news we'll get to in just a minute. And Jonathan Papelbon will join us. Jay's Sox down at the Dome starting tonight. Catch up with him next. All right, Jay's Sox tonight down at the Dome. Canada Day tomorrow. You got Yusei Kikuchi on the mound for the Jays tomorrow. Love it. Jose Barrios tonight. And Jays are coming off a big win last night. Chris Bassett was outstanding last night. 12 strikeouts. He was 6 innings strong, no earned. He and Gausman, we told you about that stat earlier in the hour. He and Gausman, the amount of times they've gone 6 innings and given up no earned in, 3 months? What are we, 3 months into the season? Doesn't happen much. Doesn't happen much.
July 1st.
Is their job, though, Hazy B. Is their job.
That is their job. That is correct. Quickly here, Keegan Matheson, our boy, tweeting out big news for Hyunjin Ryu. His next appearance will come in a minor league game on July 4th. Possibly in the Florida Complex League, though. I don't know if we want to hear that. We don't want to hear that.
Come on with that league.
Yeah, we don't want to hear that. Do we have Jonathan on the line? No? Okay, great. I thought I heard that he might be there, but he's not.
That's all right. I'm still concerned, honestly, about Manoah. The more I think about it, I'm like, this guy is down at the Complex League, and I'm anxiously waiting for more news. And, I mean, this is good news, Hyunjin Ryu, but I don't know. July 4th, either in the FCL.
The FCL or Single A Dunedin. If it were up to me, I'd get him out of the Florida Complex League.
That's going to be my future retirement job. I'm going to be the Adam Schefter, Bob McKenzie of the Florida Complex League.
Wouldn't that be a great gig? Yeah. Just hang out down there in FLA. And
just put a cooler of beers on a chair and just say, Manoah came up, he got rocked, and hashtag TSN.
Hashtag TSN. Hearing he got rocked. It's always hearing, right? You got to start with that. Hearing that Ryu may be making a start at the FCL soon.
Telling you, Manoah's going to pitch a perfect 3 because they're only doing like 3 innings, right? So
there's a pitch clock. There's a pitch count. So next time out, maybe it's 85 pitches. Technically, he could get through a full game in that. It's not likely, but.
Against bartenders, as O said. What did he say? Paper boys and bartenders. But
I don't even know. Hazy, I got to admit, before this happened, I'd never heard of the league.
Well, it's not a well-advertised league. You can't buy tickets. You're not.
No, I don't even
go down
think
there.
It's not a league.
It's
not even a league. It's just like, hey, we got a guy at our practice facility. Hey, Joe Blow from the Yankees, can you send a couple kids over there that you are part of your program down there or whatever, and see if they can go hit some pitches?
Yeah, it's completely controlled.
Right.
Completely
It's not
controlled.
a league.
No, it's not a league. There's no standings.
No.
Winning and losing doesn't really
No.
it doesn't matter.
Well, it's a developmental and a rehab place, is it not? Isn't it more about like people going there to work on their game?
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Like rehabbing and
That's
injuries, stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm really hopeful, but I just the more we talk about it, I get more negative about it. I don't want to be. I want to be positive towards Manoah. I don't want to pile on this guy, although I did. Like Marcus Stroman's got to weigh in on everything. Right? Like you see him weighing in on
he's
Manoah
weighing
going
in on
down.
Keith Hernandez and Ohtani now,
Hernandez.
right? Calling
Like
Keith Hernandez an old dinosaur, and like
Yeah.
what a dumb, ignorant comment that Keith Hernandez's responsibility to unretire his number for Shohei Ohtani in a hypothetical situation.
In the event that he goes to the Mets. Like
Right.
not even in the event.
In the event.
He just can't shut up. He just can't stop himself.
He's got to comment on everything. And listen, he's entitled to his opinion. It's his Twitter account. He's not hacking someone to do it. He can do or say whatever he wants. But then he'll open himself up, and you're going to get a response. And I think, listen, him supporting Manoah and all that, he does that all the time. Right, he's always going to say different things to support players and all that. And I don't blame athletes for doing that. But and there's the tweet up on TSN4. Ohtani deserves 17 wherever he goes. Imagine losing Ohtani in free agency because some dinosaur wouldn't give his number up. Now, I would assume there's history here between these two. Because remember, he was a Met. I don't think it went so well. I would guess Keith Hernandez
torched him.
It probably was not Marcus Stroman's biggest fan.
Probably.
And that's probably why Strowman is responding the way that he is. So you got to take that with a grain of salt, too. It's not like he's even being objective or serious here. But Keith Hernandez was a great player, and his number was retired by the team. He didn't demand it. And Shohei Ohtani doesn't deserve to get everything he wants. He can't, if he goes to the Yankees, he can't say, I want to be number 3 now.
Dude, it's so
that's Babe
stupid,
Ruth.
though. Like, it's such pie in the sky because it's not even a real thing. Like, we're talking massive things would need to happen for this to possibly even take place in the future.
Right.
And people are ripping each other over. It's so 2023. Like, it's literally not even a thing. It's a made-up thing. And people are crap-talking each other. It's insanity, man.
Yeah.
It's literally
yelling and
insanity.
screaming about it.
Yeah.
We're yelling and screaming about
ripping
it.
Ripping a guy, calling him a dinosaur because they're talking about something that's just pie in the sky. Like, what are we doing here?
That likely won't actually matter to Ohtani if he really wants to be a Met.
Yeah, you still got to get your stupid comments in for something that's just started as a silly joke, and you just it turns into this.
Yeah, you're right. Like Hernandez, I think by all accounts he was just goofing around. I know the play-by-play guy was. Like he brought it up, like tongue-in-cheek, knowing kind of where it's going, and then that became a thing, and now it's.
I like how Hernandez didn't. He just doubled down. He was like, "No, I'm good."
Not happening.
But he's
not
allowed to do
Number
that. He's
17's retired. It's his number. Like great, Shohei Ohtani. And plus, if you're a Met fan, it actually is. There is a fascinating element to it. Like, how much are you willing to give up of your own history to get a guy? But if you're a Met fan, don't you love Keith Hernandez more than you love Shohei Ohtani? Like,
no.
No?
Probably right now.
If you could get but the thing is, do you think a guy's not going to come to an organization because he wouldn't be able to get his number?
Of course not.
Exactly. That's the dumbest thing about the whole thing.
Right.
You know what
Wear
he cares
27
about?
or 71.
He'd wear something.
You don't even care about $600 million or whatever. Like he'd care more about the number.
I don't know about the $600 million. I'm not getting 17. So thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
Look at what we're talking about here.
But what I'm saying is, like, Hernandez won a World Series in '86. Was a great, great player. Is Mr. Met now. Like, has been in the booth for years. Everyone loves him by all accounts. And you're just, I don't know. If you're a Met fan, you'd be like, screw you, Keith. Shohei's more important. I don't know if that's the case.
But it's that it shouldn't have to come to that.
Of course, it
doesn't matter. Ohtani's like, could you imagine if the story leaked out? He's like, became a free agent, wanted to become a Met,
Hernandez jammed everything up.
Jammed it up. Like that's when there'd be some vitriol.
Then it would be a reaction.
Then there's a reaction. Why are we having a reaction? Why does Marcus Stroman have to weigh in on it? because of a hypothetical reaction that's probably 99% not going to happen.
Right. Like and likely tongue-in-cheek anyway.
Exactly. It's ridiculous.
It is. Now, Ryan Seacrest taking over for Pat Sajak, that's worthy of a reaction, right? Everyone's buzzing about that. And bedlam at Wheel of Fortune because Vanna White might protest.
So does Ryan Seacrest start making 17 sheets just like Patty Sage made?
I don't know, man.
Probably more. I'm telling you, that Seacrest, if you look at like his net worth and stuff,
crazy.
It is insane. Insane.
He gets every gig. It seems like every gig. He was the sideline reporter for American Idol, and then all of a sudden he's hanging out with Kelly Ripa. He's doing New Year's gigs.
But
it's wild.
I thought he owned part of American Idol. I thought he was like part owner of because I swear if you punch
Simon
in his
Cowell
net worth,
owned like all of it though.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Like I thought Seacrest had his own like network of something where he's worth like hundreds. Yeah, I'm just looking at it. Worth an estimated $450 million.
Yeah, he's got an empire, man. I'll give that guy credit. Like he doesn't even need that job. You're worth $450 million. What do you? But Wheel of Fortune's the best gig in show business. Sajak just put on a 40-year clinic. Gets together.
Jimmy Duthie was saying like they would do like 6-week stretches where they tape like 4 and 5 epis a day. Mm-hmm. And then take long breaks and then show up again and just rip off like a million shows and then you're good.
That's it. That's exactly what they did with Jeopardy. It's not even – you do it in like a week. You're there at 8 a.m., you leave at 8 at night for a week, and you just knock out like weeks and weeks and weeks of content and then say, see you later, guys. Don't call me. I'll see you in a month and a half. That is the best gig in show business.
They roll through. It was Price is Right because I've been on that set several times, and I believe my brother and his buddies like actually got there one time, and one of them went up. I think they got rinsed though, which sucks. But like you go to Price is Right set, it's like they tape like 5 shows in a day.
Yeah,
Family Feud. Jerry D. We could probably ask him. I guarantee you, they tape multiple shows in a day.
Yeah. And there's no time. They don't reference time. Like Jerry's not up there like, man, Leaf game's on tonight. Let's see where go. Like they could be taping it at any time, and it is timeless. You could play those. You could be banking episodes for 3, 4, 5 years in advance. Like that's a gig. That's what you're looking. Imagine we could do that with this show. Let's just put in a week. We never turn the mics off for a week. And then we disappear for a year.
Just chop it up.
Yeah, it's like keep it going.
It wouldn't last because what would happen is Nylander would sign the next day or something. Yeah. I've seen non-qualifying offers. Did you see Sprung and Geeky out of Seattle? Those are two, depth guys that pretty good players. Like that Sprung, I don't mind as a player at all. Same with that Geeky. He's hard to play against. Like
there's a bunch of guy noodles where teams are just saying, you know what, we like you, but just not that much. So we don't want to make a commitment, and we'd rather just focus on something else.
Yeah,
basically that's what's going on.
Yeah,
I think you're going to see a lot of movement, though. That's what I mean. It wouldn't surprise me if players like that, all of a sudden, Brad Treliving picks up the phone and says, I need some depth guys. I need a right winger. I need a guy who can add some skill in that third, fourth line. Like that Sprong, I think, has some. I watched him a few times this year live. Like I think he's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
So and. Like,
he was a Pittsburgh pick, right? And they were waiting for him for
Pittsburgh,
a while.
High pick, yeah.
But
don't you always got to ask yourself, though, like if you're looking at a guy, like my first question would be, or maybe my second question would be, because my first one would be, I kind of like you, but my second question would be, why is a team that's been around for 2 years giving up on you? That's what I have to ask myself. Why are they saying no thanks? Like, I kind of like what you can do. I kind of maybe like what you can bring. But why are they saying no thanks?
It might be just strictly money because here it is. This guy had 66
Noodles, you know the
games
deal. If it's if they like you enough, they'll find the money. It's like anywhere.
Yeah.
Can you pick up the phone and call Ron Francis and ask him that?
But
right now?
No, I don't mean you literally. I'm saying if you're another GM, like what is the protocol? Because why would Ron Francis want to help anyone else out? I guess is what I'm asking. Like, you know how like teams, like for instance, if there's a draft eligible player, the teams will call the head coach. Like I'm sure Treliving probably called Dale Hunter, right, and said, "What's up with this Easton Cowan kid? Tell me about him." Right?
Oh, coaches have a lot of feedback with the GM saying, "You know what? you might like this guy, but I can't stand him, and I can't stand putting him on the ice. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you want to bring him back here because I can't stand putting him on the ice.
But let's say Sprong is an example. Do you think Trey Living would call Francis and expect Francis to give him a true answer as to why he let him go?
It depends on their relationship. I don't think that would be standard protocol to say, why are you gassing that guy? And he says, whatever behind the scenes. I don't know if that protocol that you got to back channel that stuff. Agents of players that would know him.
Right.
But here's a 26-year-old winger who scored 21 goals last year and had 46 points in 66 games. Like, to me, I think he's probably saying, I'd like to cash that in. I need $4 million a year. And Ronnie Francis is going, can't do that. Not qualified. We'll let you go to market.
That's bold.
It is bold, but
I'm
saying, like,
it, though.
It's his first year as a 20-goal scorer. He's more like he had 14 in Anaheim. He had 13 in Washington, but he's – I think he's a guy who can be productive farther down in your lineup. But again, at what cost?
Every dollar
counts.
The biggest thing. That's
yep.
what is clear here. Every dollar counts for your best players and your worst players.
Yeah, beware the 20-goal scorer that's going to turn 27 years old that wants $5 million a year because
that's
a dangerous game.
That might be what he wanted, and Francis said can't do it. Going to move past you.
Well, it would be shocking. Dear Hazy, be in about 45 minutes. Send your submissions in at OverDrive 1050. And NBA free agency opening up in 15 minutes. You talk about all hell breaking loose. There could be a bunch of signings immediately. Fred VanVleet could sign at 6:01. And we'll catch up with Izzy Gutierrez of ESPN. Get his take on all the different things that are taking place. Jays Sox tonight. Get to our best bets. Brought to you by FanDuel. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
Jerry D. texted me and said they rip off 4 shows a day.
I love it.
Can you imagine? We just Monday morning, 6 a.m. till 4 p.m. We just ripped off OverDrive.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole week next Monday.
That'd be wild. Monday. Can you imagine that? Like it's
no scoops, no nothing.
It's like a Vegas casino, man. There's no time. Nothing. And then, at the end of it, mail it in Friday, continue, and you're just, and it's Monday. It's 10:30 a.m. on Monday.
Be awesome.
That'd be outstanding. And I don't see that in the cards, but mail it in Friday is a real thing. And it's brought to you by Boston Pizza. Weekends are better with fish bowls and frosty pints on the BP patio. Grab your sunscreen. Let's have a weekend. See you on the BP patio. This is a big weekend for that. We got a long weekend cooking, right? You got free agent frenzy tomorrow. NBA free agency beginning in 9 minutes. You've got the Jays in town against the Sox. The
Which
weather
NBA
looks okay.
player is going right off? Like what? 6:01 is gone. Is it Fred?
I don't know. I'm bracing for VanVleet, but I don't sense he will immediately. I think he'll take his time and probably meet with different teams and meet. I'm guessing the Raptors are probably going to try to get another sit down with him and try to convince him one way or the other.
2 decisions. Take the 80-plus sheets or you go back to Toronto. I mean, unless there's somebody hiding in the weeds that
could be the case, though, Noodles. It could be, right?
I guess.
Like Philly could be hiding in the weeds. The Bulls have been connected to him. I doubt it, but he's from Illinois. And then there could be a mystery team that comes out of nowhere.
Don't you think it's a bit weird? Like Friday at 6 o'clock? Like
it's
Easter,
a strange way of kind of starting.
There's the time. Like, let's start free agency
kind
Friday
at 6 o'clock. Time, isn't it?
It is news dumping.
But it might be actually brilliant because people are like, I need to tune into this. Like they've taken their own time slot here as go that Friday at 6 o'clock it starts. All hell's going to break loose.
Right.
So people are just going to be so focused on what's going on. If you're a huge basketball fan, you're glued to the TV.
And you got, Kyrie Irving is out there, right? Kyrie is out there. And what is he going to do? I can't imagine he signs
I want nothing to
tonight.
Do with him.
No, but I think someone will because he's so talented. When he's on the court, he's a great player. But it didn't work well with Luka. It obviously was a mess in Brooklyn. Boston, he left on a bad – everywhere he goes, it's just it doesn't seem to work out. But, as for the Raptors, I could see Portal signing at 601. That might happen. Like Jakob Poeltl, 3-year deal at $64.25 million deal.
You'd certainly expect it, or why the hell else would they acquire him?
Yeah, exactly. Like you had to get him with the understanding that you were hoping to keep him and be somewhat of a centerpiece, for your squad moving forward. The Rocket mortgage continuing. See your boy JT, he was brutal. Like yesterday.
Well, I know he was like 5 over yesterday.
Yeah.
Garbage again today.
Well, he was under par today, but it doesn't matter. Like he's missing the cut. He's T142 or something.
Yeah.
Like,
JT used to be at a level where if he showed up at the Rocket mortgage, he's in the last 2 or 3 groups on Sunday.
Exactly. Like he was in the Scheffler-Rahm territory where it's like, this isn't a deep field, and if Justin Thomas is there, bank on it. That guy's
Dude, you know who is getting to that point right now? And you joked for months. Rick Fowler is up on every leaderboard now.
Yep, he is. Rick Fowler, he may officially be back. It feels that way anyway. So more on that into the next hour. Izzy Gutierrez on NBA free agency. Dear Hazy B, our best bets brought to you by FanDuel. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050, soon to be up on TSN 2.